Hi everyone, welcome back to the cocktail vlog. I'm Steve the bartender, and today I'm making two variations of the Scofflaw cocktail. The only variation that I'm making is the base ingredient. So I'm altering from a rye whiskey to a Canadian whiskey. The term Scofflaw was originated back in 1924, and it was a term used for people who were drinking illegally during prohibition. And this cocktail was actually created at Harry's New York bar in Paris as a bit of a dig towards the Americans because, well, they couldn't drink, and the people in France and Paris, they could. So, yeah, so generally you can alter your different whiskey. You can choose a rye, you can use a Canadian whiskey, or you can use a bourbon. But historically, they used a Canadian style whiskey because they couldn't get an American whiskey. If you don't want to use a Canadian, use a rye. If you don't want to use a rye, use a bourbon. Easy. And this is also a good example of using a Grenadine, good recipe to use. And it calls for 60 ml, 2 ounces of your chosen whiskey. So I'm going to make both drinks at once. So 60 ml, 2 ounces rye whiskey. Thanks to Caleb for using By the Back Bar. And 60 ml, 2 ounces of your Canadian whiskey. We don't really have a lot of access to Canadian whiskies here in Australia. I mean, Canadian Club, I'm sure everyone's familiar. The only other Canadian whiskey I have is Spicebox, which is a spiced whiskey. So that's probably not useful for this particular recipe. Then we have 30 ml, 1 ounce of Dry Vermouth. I'm actually using a Torino style Dry Vermouth, but it's local to me, Adelaide Hills Distillery. Shout out to you guys. I'll leave a link in the description below for those in Australia that are keen to buy a bottle. We have just 7.5 ml, 1/4 ounce of fresh lemon juice. And I'm going to add a few cubes of ice to my glasses, get them chilling. Almost forgot that. Whoops. And so Gary Regan didn't like the original recipe, so he adapted it. I don't think I mentioned it before. And this recipe here calls for 2 dashes of Grenadine. I'm using 7.5 ml, 1/4 ounce. House-made Grenadine. Check the link up. And then we've got Regan's Orange Bitters, thanks to Daniel O'Regan. 1 dash in each one. 1 dash per cocktail. And then we'll give it a shake. So the differences between these two cocktails are going to be quite subtle. But I was interested to try them side by side. So the first one, the Rye Whiskey Scofflaw. So the first one, a Rye Whiskey Scofflaw. And I'm thinking I probably should have used a coupe glass, which has a slightly larger volume because, as you can see, I'm to the brim. To the brim, and I've also got another 15, 20 ml left in the shaker too. So there you have 2 variations of the Scofflaw cocktail. One with Canadian whiskey and then one with an American rye whiskey. I'm gonna leave this one ungarnished, and keep in mind, like, I'm using a house-made Grenadine, so a lot of photos you might look for might look like really poppy and vibrant red, and that's probably due to the more artificial grenadine. This is house made. Make sure you check out the link if you want to find out the recipe. But they have a Scofflaw. You get the intricacies of the dry vermouth. I like how that plays in this cocktail. It dries it out. It's not super citrusy and vibrant. And the rye whiskey adds a little bit of spice to it. There's quite a bouquet, quite a lot of aromatics on the nose, and that's from the dry vermouth. The one with Canadian whiskey. I quite like this, but in saying that, because it's not as spicy, it's a lighter style whiskey, it doesn't stand up to the other ingredients. I enjoy it, but it's not as complex. I actually feel with the use of the rye, the additional spice actually highlights the complexity and the aromatics of the dry vermouth. They're more apparent in this one. So to summarize, the rye whiskey kind of highlights the dry vermouth a little bit more, whereas this is a cleaner, get a little bit more vibrant kind of flavor to it. Kind of lets the lighter style whiskey, allows the other ingredients, mainly the grenadine, to shine, a little bit more tartness, a little bit more citrus coming through. Very difficult one to choose which I would prefer. So you guys are gonna have to make it at home and let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon for another cocktail video. Cheers.